Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. The headlines. The President receives U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at the State House, Abuja, speaks on NSAR's panel report. Igbo leaders visit the President, seek release of leader of proscribed IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. President promises to consider request. Academic Staff Union of Universities agrees to renegotiate initial agreement with federal government on revitalization of universities. Plus, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi repeals controversial reforms on farming laws. That's News Round in View. And we begin News Round in the State House, Abuja, where President Muhammadu Buhari received the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. While receiving Mr. Blinken, the President spoke on the recently submitted report of the Lagos State Investigative Panel of Inquiry into police brutality, saying he will await the outcome of decisions by the states before making any pronouncement on it. In a statement by the President's media aide, Femi Adesina, the President, who reacted to the report for the first time since it was submitted and leaked, said he will allow the system exhaust itself on the matter. Mr. Blinken also said the U.S. is anticipating the federal government's decision on the report.
Arriving the forecourt of the presidential villa in a motorcade, the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, is received by Nigeria's President, Muhammadu Buhari. The U.S. top diplomat is on a three-nation tour in Africa, and Nigeria is his second stop after Kenya. The burning issue of security and possible assistance, among other issues, are central at discussions held behind closed doors. During the hour-long conversation, the globally recognized End SARS protest also came to the fore, prompting a reaction by the president. In a statement issued afterwards by the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, the president declared that he would wait for steps taken by states and allow the system to work. He says he will wait for their reaction and not impose ideas on them. Building on this, the American Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who walks in with Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister for a media conference, expands on the conversations, maintaining that the U.S. is looking forward to the government's response on the End SARS report.
By tackling these issues, we can help to address some of the problems that have been key drivers of insecurity. To that end, let me say that we welcome the conclusion of the investigation by the independent of inquiry established by the Lagos state government to look into the events that took place near Lekki toll gate in Lagos in October of 2020. This, of course, was amidst the End SARS protests, including the killings and other alleged abuses by the security forces.
Against the backdrop of the recently procured A-29 Super Tucanos, the top U.S. diplomat is more concerned about building capacity and human rights.
We're working with Nigeria to address security challenges, including those posed by Boko Haram, ISIS West Africa, and other terrorist and extremist groups. In meetings with the President, with the Vice President, with the Foreign Minister, we discussed the importance of a comprehensive approach that builds effective security forces, addresses the underlying drivers of extremism, and respects Nigerians' basic human rights.
Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister further buttresses views by Blinken, who tells journalists that partnership with Nigeria is not about wielding more influence than China.
We have wonderful relations with the U.S. and we have wonderful relations with China, economic relations, and it'll just it'll be on an ad hoc basis and based on the interests of Nigeria, not on the interests of China or the interests of the U.S.
The American Secretary of State will be meeting with faith leaders in the country to promote peace as the U.S. looks forward to enhancing more ties with Nigeria to confront other issues like climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
The president is also saying he will consider the request for the release of the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. after a meeting with a group of Igbo leaders led by First Republic parliamentarian and Minister of Aviation Chief Mbazulike Amechi at the State House. During the dialogue, the president noted that an unconditional release of Mr. Kanu, who is currently standing trial on charges of treasonable felony and terrorism, runs contrary to the doctrine of separation of powers between the executive and judiciary.
This is the first group of visitors the president would be meeting after receiving the American Secretary of State at the presidential villa upon his return from an official trip. The group, under the aegis of highly respected Igbo greats, is led by First Republic parliamentarian and former Minister of Aviation, Chief Mbazulike Amechi. The situation in the southeast, which he describes as painful and pathetic, is an increasing concern, he laments to the president. He is asking that the president considers a political rather than military solution to the situation and release the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, to him to save businesses and the education sector from utter collapse in the region. He assures that he would exert control over the IPOB leader as a highly respected man in Igbo land. Having heard the submissions, the president admits that making a decision is difficult, but he would consider the group's request. According to a statement released by the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, the president says that the group has made an extremely difficult demand on him as leader of the country. In his words, the implication of your request is very serious. In the last 6 years, since I became president, nobody would say I have confronted or interfered in the work of the judiciary. God has spared you and given you a clear head at this age with very sharp memory. A lot of people half your age are confused already, but the demand you have made is heavy. I will consider it.
It would be recalled that last month, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, had also alluded to a flexible stance on the matter when he stated that the federal government is open to all kinds of considerations, including a political solution as part of efforts to resolve the crisis surrounding separatist agitations in the southeast and the southwest parts of the country. It is expected that more reactions will trail this consideration, which is the first openly made by the president. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And as discussions continue on improving governance in Africa, former President Goodluck Jonathan says African leaders must engage in meaningful conversation to achieve sustainable peace and unity on the continent. Dr. Jonathan states that corruption and bad governance are the leading causes of disunity in Africa. He was speaking at the opening of a democracy dialogue hosted by the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation in Abuja.
This is a dialogue session organized by the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation to capture the essence of democracy in Africa. The convener of the dialogue, former President Goodluck Jonathan, is expressing worry over the challenges that continue to pose a serious threat to the unity of African countries.
We must introduce some dialogue series, and we will get professional, competent, experienced people from all over the world to come and have a conversation with us. How do other countries practice democracy? We must emulate others. There are some countries you go that electing people into offices, minimal of ethnic interests. But some countries, the ethnic dominance is a major role. And in that case, the process of political recruitment is huge. And in most cases, you may not be able to get a good leader.
The crux of conversation here is the contemporary challenge of nation building in Africa, especially in view of the leadership crisis in parts of the continent. A former United Nations envoy believes good leadership will unite the people.
The current crisis of management of diversity, current crisis of a state is the reflection of a crisis of leadership on the African continent. We need a novel quality of leadership on the African continent.
The foundation is hosting this dialogue session a day before the former president marks his 64th birthday and some dignitaries used the opportunity to eulogize him.
This country can be great. How? It can be great if this clan of people in Nigeria, the political class, decides to be selfless, decides to be honest.
The operators of the institutions that facilitate the practice of democracy must be strengthened, must be deepened, must be given an opportunity to ventilate if we want to see the kind of progressive growth that we desire on the continent of Africa.
The foundation is hoping that the conversations here will help set the agenda for bigger civic engagement for the promotion of peace and good governance in Africa.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has met with the Academic Staff Union of Universities, as well as the Ministers of Finance and Education, aimed at preventing the impending strike by the academic union. At the end of the meeting, ASU and the federal government agreed to renegotiate the initial agreement on revitalization of universities. While the federal government says the 1.3 trillion naira agreement is unrealistic at the moment, Minister of State for Education, Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, says the renegotiation process will commence in 1 week.
Yes. Following a motion in the Green Chamber on Tuesday, the Speaker of the House of Representatives meets with the Minister of Finance and that of State for Education, as well as the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU. The meeting is an intervention by the House to avert an impending strike by the academic union over what it describes as a breach of agreement by the federal government. One of the issues in contention is the Revitalization Fund agreement, which the federal government is unable to meet, as ASU agrees to a renegotiation.
There might be also a need to sit back and look at a long-term view, because 1.3 trillion is a very large amount of money to raise, even though there was commitments from 2009, then 2013. But the situation physically now is not the same as it was at that time.
The Commission Delegation will work with the minister, Honourable Minister, correct? And for the renegotiation, and they will get back to you on that. Mr. President, sir, are we on the same page? They said 1 week.
By this time next week, we can reconvene all the potpourri of committee members.
Meanwhile, the 22 billion naira earned allowances for members of the union is one issue which ASU insists cannot be negotiated.
Money is not in our cost today, it's in the cost of members of ours. So normally we give them a schedule like this with the universities, how many, that's what I said earlier, that there is no disagreement with that. That will reach you, it has reached Ministry of Finance today, so maybe by Monday they should start working on the end allowance part.
Also, ASU had insisted that it would not be part of the federal government's integrated payroll and personnel information system and had developed its own payment system, UTAS, which it says is much safer in comparison.
What is happening with IPPIS, Your Excellency, is that it's like now you see it, then you don't. Today, you may get salary this month. Next month, you will not get salary. And then you have to leave your job in your university, come to Abuja, go to IPPIS office, and see one lady. Our members reported.
In its wisdom, once a new system, so be it. But please, let us not say the IPPIS is as in that kind of bad light that you are putting it. The system is working very well, and it's serving government well.
While the meeting ends without a commitment from the academic union to suspend the planned strike, the Speaker assures that the ICT and Education Committees of the House would follow up on the UTAS issue. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
When News Round returns, Society of Broadcasters inaugurated in Lagos to strengthen quality of the nation's media ecosystem. Stay with us. Welcome back. As part of moves towards strengthening the quality of the nation's media ecosystem, a new body to regulate the practice of broadcasting as a profession in Nigeria has been inaugurated. Known as the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters, SNB, the organization is to, among other things, coordinate, set standard, admit, and issue certificates of practice to all professional broadcasters in the country. During the inauguration of SBN at Channels Television Global Headquarters in Lagos, Chairman of the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria, Mr. John Ube, said the society will put broadcast professionalism in focus.
One of the things we really talked about during the elections, and it's something I really believe in, was training. And you know, this is one of those professions that people don't see training as essential. And because there's no body, there's no regulation around it, it means I can just pick up the mic today and I'm a broadcaster. And it doesn't matter if I don't do it the right way. And I think this is one of those things that we'll try to address that. We're not trying to exclude, but we're trying to say there's a right way of doing it, and it's important that there's a way the books must be done. Then in broadcasting, there's a right way of doing things, and there should be a body that tries to regulate that, and we're happy to have as many people as possible be broadcasters, but there should be a process that, you know, you should be trained and you should be able to do it the right way, because I think, as we discussed earlier, there's a lot of responsibility that is placed on broadcasters, especially when they talk about national, interest.
This is working well.
Meanwhile, Chairman of Channels Media Group, Dr. John Momo, highlighted the significance of repositioning the media landscape with the onboarding of the new body for broadcasters.
Broadcasting, as we all know, remains one of the longest existing professions and the most powerful organ of communication in Nigeria. But a glance at many professions in Nigeria, as you alluded to, will show the need for us to have the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters, the NBA, the Nigerian Bar Association, the Medical Association, the Nigerian Medical Association, the pharmacists. We have the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, the Nigerian Society of Engineers, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, to mention but just a few, all have the backing of law, and they regulate their profession and the professionals. The need for us, therefore, to resuscitate, and I choose my word very carefully, to resuscitate the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters has become absolutely necessary. We need to establish a regulatory authority that will regulate the profession and practice of broadcasting in the country, set the required academic qualification and ethical standards for broadcasters. We also need to ensure proper standardization of broadcasting equipment, especially in this digital age. And there is need for us all to ensure that broadcasters and broadcasting organizations promote peace, development, and harmonious coexistence, while also putting the culture of the people in the front burner.
The Society of Nigerian Broadcasters is open to established and aspiring broadcasters in 4 categories, including the full membership, associate membership, student membership, and the fellowship of SBN, with set requirements for admission. 3 men, 1 woman, and a 10-year-old boy have died from an explosion that occurred in a domestic gas retailing center located on Ojekunle Street at the Ladipo Spare Parts Market in Lagos. The coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency in the Southwest, Mr. Ibrahim Farilui, and the child said the child died while being rushed to the hospital. Officials of the Lagos State Fire Service, Police Disaster Management Unit, and LASEMA were also at the scene of the blast for the rescue operations.
This is what is left after a fire incident at the Ladipo market area of Lagos following a gas explosion caused by a leakage while a cylinder was being refilled. Men of the Nigerian Fire Service, the Nigerian Police and the State Emergency Service, including NEMA, all team up to evacuate gas cylinders from the scene. 4 adults and a 10-year-old died during the incident. Ojekunle Street, leading to the popular Ladipo market, has now been cordoned off as authorities clean up the area.
Further assessment done indicates that we have 6 lock-up shops destroyed, 3 makeshift shops affected, and 3 buildings where there are windows, 5 buildings where windows were shattered. The area is being cleaned up now so as to open traffic for users. And the whole building will be handed over to the state governments, who will take appropriate action.
On the part of security agencies, the Lagos State Commissioner of Police is on ground to assess the situation. He reveals the cause of the explosion.
Human negligence, all led to it. Because of what I've seen there now, for what I've heard, the thing blew off when someone was trying to refuel the gas cylinder as well as making call. But you've seen it now that the disaster is much. Unfortunately, the person to tell us what actually happened has lost his life. All those who lost their life today now, they never planned it. And there's no way you carry out an operation without inconveniencing anybody. So I rather want to appeal to them that we did not come to this world with money, we are not going with money. We appeal to them that we are trying to save human life. There are so many gas cylinders that are still filled up here. If we don't cordon off and one explodes, then we blame us.
Human error is believed to be the cause of this incident that has now claimed 5 lives, and from preliminary findings, this explosion could have been avoided and lives saved.
A news round ends in India, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced the repeal of 3 controversial farm laws after a year of protests. Thousands of farmers had camped at Delhi's borders since last November, and dozens died from heat, cold and COVID. Farmers say the laws will allow the entry of private players in farming, and that will hurt their income.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday, in a surprise concession, announced he would repeal controversial farm laws that farmers have protested for more than a year. It is seen as a significant climb down from the combative leader who said the farm laws that sparked a year of protest will be scrapped.
Today, I have come to tell you, the whole country, that we have decided to withdraw and repeal all 3 agricultural laws. In the Parliament session starting later this month, we will complete the constitutional process to repeal these 3 agricultural laws.
Friday was a significant about-face for Modi, though the news comes just ahead of elections early next year in several states, including Uttar Pradesh, the country's most populous state. Indian farmers welcome farm law repeal but vow to continue protests until it's official.
When it is completed in writing, only then will we go, even if it takes 1, 2 or 3 months.
Farmers had feared the overhaul would cut the prices they get for their crops. They staged nationwide protests that sometimes broke into violence and drew in activists and celebrities. Many of the largest around the capital, New Delhi, where they've been camped since last November. The legislation was introduced months earlier in September, and the government had said the reforms meant new opportunities and better prices for farmers. It lets them sell produce beyond government-backed wholesale markets. But small farmers said the changes would instead make them vulnerable to competition from big business.
And that's it on News Round. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to join us again for more news at the next hour. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now.